Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Newsline at noon, the U.S. Pacific commander says Washington is concerned about North Korea's long-range missile program as experts warn Pyongyang is making progress in developing ICBMs. President Park Geun-hye receives a warm royal welcome from Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh as she seeks a new level of cooperation with Britain. Plus, the United States and Russia failed to agree on a date for international talks to end the Syrian conflict. The UN Arab League envoy says he hopes the meeting will be held before the year is out. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. The pomp and pageantry of the British royal family was on full display Tuesday as Korean President Park Geun-hye started the first full day of her state visit to Britain.
The president was warmly greeted by Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh and was taken by state carriage procession to Buckingham Palace. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports from London.
The red carpet treatment rolled out for President Park on the first day of her state visit to London was exceptional. From the welcoming ceremony, which took place at the Horse Guards Parade, to the state dinner at Buckingham Palace, President Park and Queen Elizabeth demonstrated the close and strong ties between Korea and Britain.
In our international affairs, we continue to work together for peace on the Korean Peninsula and beyond.
The creative attributes of our two countries can be brought together to unlock innovation here and there.
The Queen is known to have personally selected the presents for President Park and even the wine and food that was served during the state dinner, which lasted for 3 hours. Earlier in the day, President Park also met with around 100 British lawmakers at the Houses of Parliament, where she emphasized that Korea and Britain are trusted partners that share a common vision for the future.
Korea and Britain can become ideal partners in the quest for new engines of growth. The key lies in combining our respective strengths in science, technology, and industry, and enriching this further with our unique cultures.
Attending a groundbreaking ceremony for a Korean War Veterans Memorial, President Park said the memorial will represent the two nations' special ties and developed relationship, with this year marking the 60th anniversary of the Korean War armistice and the 130th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Korea and Britain. On Wednesday, President Park is scheduled to hold bilateral talks with British Prime Minister David Cameron, in which cooperation in the sectors of the creative economy and finance will likely top the agenda. The two countries will also sign a number of MOUs in these fields during President Park's stay here in Britain. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News, London.
North Korea is reportedly making progress on developing an intercontinental ballistic missile that could deliver a first-generation nuclear warhead to the continental United States. Some experts say Pyongyang has the capability to test fire an ICBM at any given time. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
North Korea experts widely ridiculed the North's road mobile ICBM, the KN-08. After Pyongyang first revealed it at a military parade back in April 2012, and again in July this year. The experts said they were probably nothing more than mock-ups. But 38 North, a website run by Johns Hopkins University's U.S. Korea Institute, said Tuesday that the North has the capabilities in place to produce a missile with a theoretical range of between 5,500 to more than 11,000 kilometers. A missile with that range could technically take a light first-generation nuclear warhead far as Seattle. A top U.S. military commander has admitted he is concerned about North Korea's ICBM capabilities.
When I see KN-08 road mobile missiles that appear on a parade in a North Korean military parade, I am bound to take that serious, both for not only the peninsula but also the region, as well as my own homeland.
South Korea's Defense Intelligence Agency also said Tuesday that Pyongyang has conducted 5 long-range rocket engines tests this year. Experts say the KN-08 is similar in structure to the Una-3 rocket, which the North used to put a satellite into orbit last December. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
A senior South Korean official says China's latest diplomatic efforts to resume the six-party talks on denuclearizing the North may just not be enough to meet Seoul and Washington's expectations. He also stressed there needs to be a framework to ensure Pyongyang doesn't continue its nuclear activities if and when the multilateral negotiations resume. Our Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
China's latest proposal for the conditions needed to restart the stalled six-party denuclearization talks is, quote, forward-looking, but does not go far enough. Speaking to reporters in Washington on Tuesday, a South Korean senior official said that South Korea and the United States appreciate China's continued efforts for dialogue, but expressed skepticism over a resumption of the multilateral talks in the near future. The comment comes amid a flurry of diplomatic activity between the six-party member nations, the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia. China's top nuclear envoy, Woo Da-wei, was in Washington last week to meet with his U.S. counterpart, Lin Davies, which was then followed by a meeting between Davies and South Korean nuclear negotiator Cho Tae-yong. As Davies shared the results of the Washington-Beijing discussions with his South Korean partner, Woo made a surprise trip to Pyongyang. While the string of visits is fueling speculation about a possible resumption of the six-party talks, the South Korean official said that the North will have to do more than just implement the so-called Leap Day deal to demonstrate its sincerity on denuclearization. Under the deal reached by Washington and Pyongyang last year, the North promised to suspend its nuclear tests and allow international inspectors onto its soil. The deal was effectively broken when Pyongyang fired a rocket just 2 months later. Responding to recent reports of nuclear development in the communist regime, the South Korean official said the activity could be a strategic move on the part of the North in advance of future negotiations. While the official said he doubted that North Korea will launch another missile in the near future, he warned that provocations of any kind will inevitably take the isolated regime further from the negotiating table. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
With South Korea essentially going back to square one on its multi-billion-dollar fighter jet project after it turned down Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle, a former top U.S. Air Force general has spoken up, suggesting Seoul split its planned purchase of 60 jets. Ronald Fogelman, who now works as a consultant for Boeing, recommends Korea buy 40 Boeing F-15s and 20 Lockheed Martin F-35s. The initial bidding process broke down after Seoul turned down Boeing's tender for 60 F-15s due to skepticism over its lack of stealth functions. Fogelman admits the Korean military will eventually need radar evading capabilities like those offered by the F-35, but said Lockheed Martin's jet will not be able to carry its full range of weapons until the 2020s. He said a combined purchase with Boeing's F-15 would be a right choice in the short term.
Moon Jae-in, a former presidential candidate for the main opposition Democratic Party, will be questioned by prosecution officials this afternoon about the scandal surrounding the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit. Moon, the former chief of staff under the Liberal No Mu-hyun administration, is thought to hold the key to finding out what might have happened to the summit transcript. The document in question has been a source of political dispute since the ruling Saenuri party claimed late President No conceded the northern limit line that is a maritime border with the north, to then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il during that summit. Moon will appear at the prosecutor's office at 2 p.m. today, Korea time. That's just under 2 hours away. Prosecutors concluded last month that the original draft of the transcript had been deleted and only the final version had been stored in the electronic system of documentation at No's presidential office. Korean tech giant LG Display is still the #1 player in the global LCD panel market, yet again selling more panels than its competitors in the third quarter. Global market research firm Display Search says LG Display, which has been the market leader for 4 years now, held a market share of 26% in the July to September period. That's up 1% from the previous quarter and came despite the overall industry contracting by 2%. LG Display also posted the most global sales in the period at roughly $4.9 billion, outselling domestic rival Samsung by $1.2 billion. Samsung was second in terms of market share and sales during the July to September period. And while we're on the subject of Korea's electronics giants, they are pulling up the curtains on curved screen smartphones, which are seen as the stepping stone to the creation of flexible gadgets that can be folded just like a newspaper. Yulian reports.
This is the world's very first smartphone with the curved display, unveiled by Samsung Electronics last month. The curve is possible as the screen is made of plastic instead of glass. Now its domestic rival LG Electronics this week unveiled its very own curved screen smartphone as well. But unlike Samsung, the battery in LG's latest smartphone is also curved, taking the process one step closer to a fully flexible smartphone.
We have applied the curved design on this smartphone. It's a smartphone that can create new user experiences and provides a new direction in the evolution of smartphones.
Apple and Google are also rumored to be working on smartphones with curved screens, as well as smartwatches that bend around the wrist, which are set to hit the market next year. Aside from the wow factor, what sets a curved smartphone apart from the rest of the pack? While LG says its screens are unbreakable, while Samsung says a curved screen provides more viewing space within the same footprint. But experts say laying out curved smartphones has a separate purpose all its own.
The curved smartphones strongly signal the fact that Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics are leading the global smartphone industry. It will still take 2 to 3 years for a genuine form of flexible smartphone to come out.
That's because the companies need to make all the parts of the smartphone bendable, not just the screen and the battery. But step by step, the tech giants are showing progress, leaving gadget lovers wondering which company will be the one to unveil the world's first fully flexible smartphone. Yurian, Arirang News.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
It looks like international talks to end the Syrian conflict will not take place anytime soon. On Tuesday, multilateral efforts to announce the date for the so-called Geneva II talks, which were tentatively set for the middle of this month, fell through. Following meetings with diplomats from the U.S., Russia, and several other nations in Geneva, the UN Arab League envoy for Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, said he hoped to see peace talks take place before the end of this year. The envoy plans to hold further discussions with U.S. and Russian officials on November 25th. The Syrian opposition doesn't want either President Bashar al-Assad or Iran taking part in talks for the transitional government. The U.S. and Russia are also divided over several issues. Germany has summoned the British ambassador to discuss a latest news report that said the British embassy in Berlin was used as a covert spying station. Citing leaked U.S. National Security Agency documents, the independent newspaper reported the embassy may house a, quote, top secret listening post. The British embassy is located close to the German parliament and the chancellor's offices and is said to have high-tech equipment mounted on the roof. The German government is furious and says any such activity would be against international law. A spokesperson for British Prime Minister David Cameron said he had not spoken to Chancellor Angela Merkel about the report and there were no plans for a conversation. The spokesperson wouldn't comment on specifics but stressed Britain's intelligence services operate within the law. The president of the Boston Federal Reserve has warned it's not the right time to consider scaling back the Fed's massive stimulus program or raising the nation's interest rates. In an interview with a U.S. network CNBC Tuesday, Eric Rosengren said more time was needed to see how sustainable improvements in the labor market are and how fast the economy is growing before deciding on when to taper stimulus. He said the Fed needs to see growth much closer to 3% than 2%. Growth is currently around 2.2%. The Fed has also been keen to emphasize its commitment to keep its key interest rates near zero for some time to ease concerns within the bond market. Likely to add to the ongoing tensions between Korea and Japan, a top Japanese official says Tokyo should promote its position on the wartime sexual slavery issue internationally. Speaking in Parliament Tuesday, Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said the Prime Minister's office should lead a global campaign to let the world know Korea and Japan settled the issue of compensation for the victims in a 1965 agreement. The remarks come as Japan's Sankei Shimbun reported on a foreign ministry document in which Tokyo said that Korea has been claiming since the early 1990s that the issue of comfort women is outside the compensation agreement. The report comes days after President Park Geun-hye ruled out a summit with Japanese leader Shinzo Abe unless Tokyo apologizes for its wartime atrocities in an interview with the BBC.
The toxic smog choking eastern China is becoming an increasing cause of concern for Korea. Fine dust particles are forecast to blow across the West Sea and affect the Korean peninsula from this Wednesday evening and well into Thursday. Connie Lee reports.
It's not a fuzzy screen that you see. That's the air in China these days. The smog in China is at its worst levels in 52 years. And the air is about to get worse as the temperatures drop. China is not only the world's biggest greenhouse gas emitter, it is heavily reliant on coal for heating during the winter. But air pollution knows no borders. The heaviest pollution in northeastern China is making its way to the Korean peninsula by northwesterly winds. Meteorologists say up to 50% of the smog from China reaches here. Levels reached record highs in Seoul over the weekend, with the PM 2.5, or the fine particles in the air that pose the greatest health risk, reaching about 180 micrograms per cubic meter. That's beyond the normal level, but still much lower than the 480 level seen in Beijing. Seoul resident Lee Hyung-suk says he feels the effects of the poor air.
The air has definitely gotten pretty bad recently. Sometimes my throat hurts and I have more phlegm now.
So far this week, though, the air quality has been measured at normal levels according to the National Institute of Environmental Research. But come Thursday, it may be a different story.
By Thursday, as the low atmospheric pressure moves, the northwesterly winds will carry the smog from China to Korea. We could expect high levels of ultrafine particles that day.
Health officials say the ultrafine particles from the smog are more hazardous to your health than the yellow dust often seen in Korea during the springtime. The smog tends to be worse in the mornings than in the evenings, and when the air quality is poor, health officials advise children, the elderly, and people with illnesses to stay indoors.
When the smog exceeds normal levels, it negatively affects people's respiratory systems. Those with respiratory problems, such as asthma or lung disease, could see their symptoms worsen with the smog.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
India is in a festive mood. The Indian Space and Research Organisation has launched a Mars-bound probe as part of its first mission to the Red Planet, bringing the country another step closer to its stated goal of demonstrating its advanced space technology to the world. The 1.35-ton unmanned probe, called the Mangalyaan, meaning Mars craft in Hindi, blasted off on Tuesday afternoon from an island off the east coast of the country. The spacecraft is expected to arrive in Mars orbit in around 300 days, after which it will gather information about the atmosphere and surface of Mars. If the mission is successful, India will become the fourth nation in the world and the first in Asia to send an unmanned probe to the Red Planet. Korea's first polar research center in Antarctica is slated to be completed next year. When finished, the center is expected to help Korea gain a broader understanding of the frozen continent. Ji Myung-gil reports.
This is Changbogo Antarctic Research Station, Korea's first research center on Antarctica. The site is located on Terra Nova Bay and is Korea's second research facility at the South Pole, after the King's Haejong Station located on King George Island off the coast of Antarctica.
25 years after King's Haejong Station was completed in 1988, a new group of engineers will be going to the Changbogo Station building site next Monday.
The new polar station, which comes with a nearly $100 million price tag, is slated for completion next March and will have 16 buildings in all. Construction hasn't been easy given the harsh landscape and unpredictable weather.
A job like this would normally take only 2 hours, but we've been digging for 3 days because this ice is harder than rock.
Even a slight icy wind can make us lose track of our location while we are working.
Once the Changbogo Station is finished, Korea will be the 10th country to have 2 research stations in Antarctica. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Time now for an update on the weather with our Lee Ji-hyun standing by at the Weather Center. Good afternoon to you, Ji-hyun.
Well, good afternoon, Yusun and Mark. Now, guys, I'm a little worried about that report on the toxic smoke from China. How about you guys?
Yes, well, it's pretty worrying, and it's quite surprising, or maybe not really, that toxic smog is actually more harmful than the yellow dust we're used to that comes in from China every spring.
Right, and because the smoke contains ultra-fine particles that our bronchial tubes can't filter, so the particles would go directly into the lungs. So experts recommend avoiding unnecessary travel and washing hands and brushing your teeth more frequently for the next couple of days. And as for today's forecast, it is shaping up to be a rather cool and cloudy day, and there could be a few showers nationwide, which could bring down the temperatures a bit lower than yesterday. And the clouds will linger throughout the day across the nation, so expect mostly to partly cloudy day today. Now tomorrow, spotty showers will break out early in the morning here in the central region, along with thunder and lightning, so have your umbrella handy if you're in the central region. And again, there will be a high level of fine dust particles in the air tomorrow, so we should wear a face mask before heading out. Now tomorrow is a big day for most high school seniors who will be taking the college entrance exam. Well, temperature-wise, it will be slightly warmer in the morning hours, but afternoon highs doesn't look to be too different from today's. But we will have lots of sunshine. But again, try not to be outdoors too long because of the smoke. So with that in mind, it's time to take a look at the readings for this afternoon. The afternoon high in Seoul will make it to 14 degrees Celsius, and Daegu and Gwangju will get up to 18, while Busan will see a high of 20. 21. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju will reach 20 in the afternoon with partly cloudy skies, and Daejeon and Dokdo will topping out at 16 and 17, while Mount Kumgang will make it to 8. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Now back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jeeon, for the weather there. And that's it for this Wednesday edition of Newsline at Noon. And we do hope to see you back again at the same time tomorrow.
Until then, do stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.